Dr. Neena Sengupta is an ecologist and urban forager who lives in Auroville and works across the globe as an independent consultant, integrating biodiversity conservation and sustainable development options. She is renowned for her work on edible weeds and has also published a coloring book for adults, the first in India, on edible weeds. She also works on biodiversity EIs and compliance and other protective policies. She has graduated from and worked at the Department of Fish and Wildlife Conservation, Virginia Polytechnic Institute, and State University before developing an independent project that won international funding. Trained in India and the USA, she has worked across India, Southeast Asia, and East and West Africa on climate change adaptation initiatives and other social and livelihood initiatives. Her work involves developing grassroots level projects, citing large scale initiatives, exploring options for mitigation or course correction, making policy recommendations, and evaluating compliance with best practices and international treaties and conventions. She is passionate about food forests, food gardening, art, film, and making life science active and participatory for all.
If a bird watcher can be a birder, a weed explorer can be a weeder, right?
Hi, I'm Neena. I'm an ecologist by training. I am also an ardent doodler and a foodie. All this culminated a few years back in making a coloring book for people of all ages.
We will now go exploring some of these wild uncultivated greens. I call them ultra-organic. When we fail to recognize them, we call them weeds. You will soon find that when you start noticing them, it is hard not to fall in love with them.
Let's explore the topic of the day. It's nutritious food, flourishing nature, and healthy society.
What does nutritious food do? They nourish our body and mind. Some would say soul too. When that food is grown without hurting the earth much, it is local, fresh, does not add unnecessary food miles, allow and nurture diversity, wonderful set of pollinators, etc., and in tune with the season, then our food also allow the nature to flourish. If you have healthy, local, nutritious food, a flourishing nature, and keep alive the tradition of inquiry, that is a tradition of constant learning from nature that surrounds us, we already have a healthy society. Much of this description I just gave describes the weeds. Weeds are these plants that grow around us without us ever planting them, and we often do not notice or know them. We just call them weeds. But if we care to notice, we will be struck how beautiful they are. Then maybe, like me, you will be interested to know their names. And then you will realize, oh my God, they are nutritious, medicinal, rich source of macronutrients, and so much more, growing around us to nurture us, hold us in a feeling of well-being, if we can tune into them.
This brings us to the topic Back to the Future with wild, uncultivated, ultra-organic greens we call weeds.
Why back to the future? Well, a lot of people think that weeds are things of the past. Only in the olden days, when we did not have much choice, eating these wild, uncultivated greens made sense and not anymore. But actually, weeds are the most modern things. If you start noticing them, then even in your yard or walkway, you will see they keep on changing. They are constantly changing, adjusting, adapting to the present and now.
We can talk about all this, but first, let's go exploring for some weeds.
Some studies have found that the weeds which can endure harsher weather can dig their roots deeper and are able to draw nutrients at the level that the plants we cultivate can actually get the benefit of. You will find them growing in the most harsh and difficult places, and the soil around them have cracked just by their presence. Now you see this plant. This is locally called Mantakali. They originated in Africa, and likely there is some which also originated in Australia. But here in South India, they are an integral part of our traditional meal. Highly medicinal too. Anti-inflammatory, cleansing, good for liver and kidney. This plant grows pretty much in all continents and in all places. They are pre-processed in all these places in exactly the same way. The leaves are blanched and most or all of the water are discarded. Then it can be cooked. Traditions and ancient communities and science both recommends this. But how? This comes from the scientific attitude, the sense of inquiry which all traditional community had. And this is what we need to nurture. In this day and age of climate change, where patterns of agriculture are getting disrupted, the extreme weather events are getting common, we need to revive this practice of tuning in with our surroundings. Be very aware of the new plants that come up this year, was not there last year, etc. And then find out their properties, how to process them, use them to nourish and to heal us and to help in our agriculture. This also highlights something. All weedy plants that are growing around us today were not part of our tradition. They don't have a traditional name, they don't have a traditional use, but still can be used. One thing for sure, all weeds have in common. They are nutritionally rich and they are high in micronutrients. Did you know that nearly 1/3 of the world, rich or poor, have a micronutrient deficiency? Here are these weeds, rich in iron, rich in calcium, and so many more goodies. We need to pay attention to them. Learning about the wild, uncultivated greens can reignite in us our tradition of inquiry, provide us nutrition and micronutrients to nourish our body and mind, and help us adapt better to the climate change. You see this plant, it is locally called sundakai or turkey berry. It grows wild and very well integrated in South Indian diet. If processed properly, it is absolutely yum. It protects against bacterial and viral infection. This plant has come to India from South America. But not all are like that. You see these? These are coral vines. It is called Antigonan leptopus. Every part of this plant is edible, and yet we don't eat them. The flowers you see, they are edible just like that, fresh or cooked. You can make it into tea. All the leaves can be eaten, cooked. The seeds here you see the seeds? They can be roasted and ground, and the flour can be used like a regular buckwheat flour. Then there is this one. It is called Asastasia gangetica. But it seems like this plant also came to us from Africa. There is hardly any local use or local name. Since my book came out, people in my community have started eating the leaves, the flowers, and they have started calling it mushroom spinach because of its hearty, earthy aroma and a sweet, slightly bitter and slimy taste. Weeds are the language in which climate and soil speaks to us. They are excellent indicators of climate change. I found the other day, I'll show you a picture of this plant. It is called Brihat Gokshura, Pedalium murex. Presence of these plants means the soil is saline. Would you like to be a weeder? Let's sit down and have some weedy snacks. To bring this public science initiative to people, we had printed this edible weed coloring book, which is currently out of print. We are reprinting this and then publish 2 more books in the series. I'll launch an integrated training program to rewire, reconnect and regenerate these wild greens soon after that. The workshops will be open to all enthusiasts but will target parents and educators who can then take this knowledge to the children, the change makers of the future. Most importantly, be a weeder, not because of all that, but because it is fun, joyful, they are tasty and yummy.